I was kneeling at my father's grave, 7 months pregnant, tears streaming down my face, when I heard laughter behind me. I turned around, and saw my husband, his mistress, and his entire family standing there with divorce papers, smiling. That was the day I died, and the day I was reborn. If you've ever been betrayed by the person you loved most, this story will shake you to your core. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what I did next, even I didn't see coming. Watch till the very end, the final twist will leave you speechless. My name is Kamaya, and 3 years ago I thought I was living a fairy tale. I was married to Nathaniel Crawford, a billionaire real estate mogul whose face was on every business magazine. We met when I was his executive assistant, just a simple girl from a middle-class family who somehow caught the eye of one of the richest men in the country. Everyone said I was lucky. Everyone said I hit the jackpot. But nobody saw what happened behind closed doors. The first cracks appeared 2 months before everything fell apart. I was standing in our marble bathroom, holding a positive pregnancy test with shaking hands. I thought Nathaniel would be thrilled. We talked about children. He'd promised me a family. But when I showed him that test, his face went cold. Not angry, just cold, like I told him about a bad stock instead of a miracle growing inside me. "We'll discuss this later," he said, straightening his tie. "I have a meeting." That was it. No hug, no excitement, just a dismissal. And that later never came. Around the same time, my father was diagnosed with aggressive cancer, stage 4. The doctors gave him 6 months at most. My dad was my rock, the one person who loved me unconditionally my whole life. He raised me alone after my mother passed when I was 10. He worked 2 jobs to put me through college. He walked me down the aisle with tears in his eyes, whispering, "Are you sure about this, Beta?" Even then, some part of him knew. I spent every spare moment at the hospital with my father. His room became my sanctuary, the only place I felt truly seen. Nathaniel refused to visit. "I'm building an empire, Kamaya," he'd say, annoyance in his voice. "I don't have time to sit around watching someone die." Those words should have told me everything I needed to know about the man I married. But I was too busy noticing other things. The late-night phone calls he took in his study, hanging up the moment I walked in. The missing credit card statements that suddenly needed a password. The faint smell of perfume on his collar that wasn't mine, something expensive and floral that made my stomach turn. When I asked about it, he made me feel crazy. "You're being paranoid," he'd say. "Pregnancy hormones are making you irrational." His mother, Constance, always agreed. "You're stressing my son out with these ridiculous accusations." Constance Crawford never wanted me in the family. From day one she made sure I knew I wasn't good enough. At family dinners she'd bring up Nathaniel's ex-girlfriends, women from rich families who understood their world. She'd correct my table manners, criticize my clothes, question my education. And Nathaniel would sit there silently, never defending me, just cutting his steak like nothing was happening. His sister Diane was worse. She'd post photos online of family gatherings I wasn't invited to. She'd tag Nathaniel with other women at charity events I knew nothing about. When I confronted her, she'd laugh. "Oh, sweetie, you're so sensitive. It's just social media." I was drowning in a house made of marble and gold, 7 months pregnant, watching my father die, and completely alone. My father knew something was wrong. Even as cancer destroyed his body, he watched me with worried eyes. "Kamaya," he said one afternoon, his voice weak, "promise me something. Promise me you'll never let anyone make you feel small. You're my daughter. You're strong, stronger than you know." I held his hand and lied. "I'm fine, Dad. Everything's perfect." He squeezed my fingers with what little strength he had left. "Beta, when I'm gone, remember this. The truth always comes out. Always. And when it does, don't run from it. Face it head on." 3 days later, my father passed away peacefully in his sleep. I was holding his hand when he took his last breath. The nurses cried with me. My father had been kind to everyone, even while dying. He made jokes with the staff, thanked them for every small thing, left them little inspirational notes. He was the best man I'd ever known. And when he died, I was completely alone. I called Nathaniel 17 times. He didn't answer. I called his office. His secretary said he was in meetings all day. I called his mother, she said, "Darling, people die. You need to handle this yourself. Nathaniel has important business." So I did. 7 months pregnant, crying in funeral homes, picking out caskets, writing obituaries. My father deserved a beautiful goodbye, and I gave him that, even if I had to do it alone. The funeral was small, just colleagues, neighbors, a few friends. It was intimate, and heartbreaking. I stood at the podium, my pregnant belly barely fitting behind it, and tried to speak about the man who gave me everything. The words kept catching in my throat. Nathaniel showed up 2 hours late, with his entire family. I saw them slip into the back row, and for a moment my heart lifted. Maybe he did care. Maybe he was just busy. But then I noticed they were checking their phones, whispering. And I saw Constance wearing white to a funeral, white with diamonds dripping from her neck like she was at a gala. Something felt wrong, but I told myself it was grief playing tricks on my mind. The cemetery was cold that day, not from the weather, but from emptiness. I watched my father's casket being lowered into the ground, and something inside me broke completely. This was it. The last person who truly loved me was gone. I was about to become a mother myself, and I had no one to guide me, no one to call when the baby wouldn't sleep, no one to tell me I was doing okay. I collapsed at the graveside after everyone left, fell to my knees in the grass and sobbed. My whole body shook with grief. I pressed my hands against my belly, feeling my daughter kick, and whispered, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you'll never meet him. He would have loved you so much." That's when I heard it, laughter. Cold, cruel laughter that cut through my grief like a knife. I turned around, tears still streaming down my face, and saw them. Nathaniel standing there with his arm around a woman I recognized. Vanessa, his childhood friend. But they weren't standing like friends. His hand was on her waist, possessive, intimate, and she was laughing. Behind them stood Constance, smiling like she'd won a prize. Diane was there too, holding up her phone, recording. Business partners, family friends, all watching me like I was entertainment. A man in a suit stepped forward. "Camilla Martinez," he said loudly so everyone could hear. "You've been served." He dropped a folder at my feet. It landed in the mud, right next to my father's grave. Divorce papers. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I just stared at those papers getting dirty while the people I'd called family for 3 years stood there watching. Vanessa's voice cut through the silence. "Did you really think he'd stay with someone like you?" She laughed again, that same cruel sound. "You were just keeping the seat warm, honey." Constance stepped closer, her white dress bright against the gray headstones. "You were just a placeholder, darling, a temporary arrangement. Vanessa here is carrying his real heir, his legitimate child." The world tilted. Vanessa was pregnant. I could see it now, the small bump under her designer dress. How far along was she? 3 months? 4? Nathaniel finally spoke, his voice flat and businesslike. "The prenup is clear, Camilla. You get nothing. You have 48 hours to remove your belongings from my property. The locks will be changed at midnight tomorrow." I tried to stand, but my pregnant body wouldn't cooperate. I tried to speak, no words came out. I just knelt there in the mud at my father's grave while my husband, his mistress, and his family laughed at me. Diane's voice was full of joy. "This is going in the family group chat. Everyone's going to love this." Then they turned and walked away. All of them. They left me there alone, 7 months pregnant, covered in mud, at my father's fresh grave. I heard their car doors slam, engines start, gravel crunch under expensive tires. The last mourner, an elderly man who worked with my father, helped me to my feet. He had tears in his eyes. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. Your father didn't deserve this. You don't deserve this. I don't remember getting to the hospital. I woke up there hours later, hooked to machines, a doctor looking worried. Dehydration, severe stress. The baby's heartbeat was irregular. I needed to stay calm. Stay calm. How do you stay calm when your entire life has been destroyed in a single moment? The 48-hour deadline wasn't a bluff. When I returned to what I'd called home for 3 years, the locks were already changed. My clothes were thrown on the lawn in trash bags, like garbage. Neighbors I'd smiled at for years stood in their windows watching, some taking pictures. The security guard who used to say good morning laughed as I gathered my things. Guess the princess is getting evicted, he called out. Always knew you didn't belong here. Everything happened so fast after that. Bank accounts frozen, credit cards cancelled, my phone plan cut off. The car I drove, repossessed because it was in Nathaniel's name. Friends I'd made in that wealthy world, women I'd had lunch with, gone shopping with, they all ghosted me. Every single one. Later I found out they all knew. They'd known about Vanessa for months. They watched me, pregnant and clueless, and said nothing. Some even helped cover for Nathaniel, giving alibis for his business trips. I ended up in a cheap motel with $200 I'd hidden in an old purse for emergencies. The kind of place where the neon sign buzzed all night, and the walls were so thin I could hear everything next door. I ate dollar store noodles, and cried until I had no tears left. The pregnancy complications got worse. I couldn't afford my regular doctor, so I went to a charity hospital, waiting hours just to be seen. But something strange happened there. The other women, the ones who had nothing, just like me, they were kind. A woman named Ruth shared her sandwich with me. Another woman, Maria, gave me her phone number and said, "Call me if you need anything. We mothers have to stick together." It was the first real kindness I'd felt in months. But the torture wasn't over. Diane posted photos online with captions like, "Gold digger gets what she deserves," and "Karma is real." The video from my father's funeral went viral in elite circles. I became a joke, a cautionary tale, the woman who tried to marry rich and got exactly what she deserved. Vanessa did magazine interviews. I saw them in the motel lobby flipping through tabloids. "I'm having Nathaniel's baby, his chosen heir," she said, hand on her bump, diamond ring shining. Sometimes true love has to wait for the obstacles to be removed. I was the obstacle. My baby was the obstacle. Constance gave quotes too. "My son finally freed himself from a terrible mistake. He's with the woman he was always meant to be with." I was 8 months pregnant, living in a motel, eating cheap food, watching my name dragged through the mud on every social platform. I had $50 left to my name. I had no family, no friends, no future I could see. One night I sat on the bathroom floor of that motel and looked at a bottle of pills. Just looked at it. Thought about how easy it would be to make everything stop hurting, how quiet, how peaceful. Then my baby kicked, hard. Like she was fighting. Like she was telling me to fight. I put the pills away. I pressed my hands to my belly and whispered, Okay, baby girl, we'll fight." The next morning I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Mr. Peters, my father's old lawyer, a kind man who'd known Dad for 20 years. "Kamaya," he said gently, "your father left some things for you. Can you come to my office?" I almost didn't go. What could my father have left? He died with medical bills that drained everything. But something in Mr. Peters' voice made me curious. His office was small and cluttered, nothing like the sleek firms Nathaniel used. He made me tea and sat across from me with sympathy in his eyes. "Your father left you $75,000, and a deed to his old warehouse property," he said, sliding papers across the desk. $75,000. It felt like a fortune after weeks of nothing. But Mr. Peters wasn't done. "There's also this," he said, placing a safety deposit box key in my hand. "He was very specific. You could only have this after he was gone, and only if you came alone." The safety deposit box was at a small bank across town. Inside I found a USB drive, manila folders stuffed with documents, and my father's journals. His handwriting, familiar and comforting, filled page after page. But it wasn't a diary. It was an investigation. My father had been an investigative journalist before he retired. I knew that. What I didn't know was that he'd been investigating Nathaniel's company for months, since before he got sick. He'd known something was wrong when Nathaniel refused to visit the hospital. He'd seen how my husband treated me, and he started digging. What he found was explosive. The USB drive had proof of fraud, tax evasion, illegal real estate deals, offshore accounts. Documents showed Nathaniel's empire was built on lies. Shell companies bribed city officials, stolen designs, manipulated property values, money laundering. Bank statements, emails, recorded phone calls, testimony from former employees who'd been silenced with threats and payoffs. There was a letter paper clipped to one folder, my father's handwriting, shaky from medication, but still clear. My dearest Kamaya, if you're reading this, he's hurt you. I knew he would. I saw it in his eyes at your wedding, that coldness he hides so well. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you while I was alive. I'm sorry I won't be there to hold my grandchild. But I've given you a weapon, the truth. Use it. Make him pay, not for revenge, my sweet girl, but for justice. For every person he's stepped on. For every family he's destroyed, and for you. Show him my daughter is not someone to be thrown away. I love you, Beta. I'm so proud of you. Now go be the warrior I raised you to be. Dad. I sat in that bank vault and cried. But these weren't tears of grief anymore. They were tears of rage, of purpose, of resurrection. My father had given me everything I needed to destroy the man who destroyed me. 2 weeks later I went into labor, alone in that motel room, contractions tearing through me. I called 911 and rode to the hospital in an ambulance, the same charity hospital I'd been going to. The nurses recognized me, and they were angels. They held my hand, coached me through the pain, and celebrated with me when my daughter was born. I named her Hope, because that's what she was, my reason to keep going. Holding her in my arms, looking at her tiny perfect face. I read my father's letter again. And something changed inside me forever. The broken woman who knelt at that grave died that day. A warrior was born. The next 6 months were the hardest of my life, but for different reasons. I was a single mother on a tight budget, taking care of a newborn, and planning a war. I used the $75,000 wisely. I hired a private investigator who found even more dirt on Nathaniel. I discovered his business partner, Gregory, had been betrayed too, his shares stolen through legal tricks. I contacted Gregory, showed him what I had, and we formed an alliance. I hired lawyers who worked on contingency because they believed in the case. I turned my father's warehouse into a small business as a cover, but really I was building a legal bomb that would tear Nathaniel's empire apart. I lost the baby weight. I started dressing differently, thinking differently. I became someone new, someone stronger. I stayed completely off social media. To everyone who knew me, I had simply disappeared. Meanwhile, Nathaniel was living his best life. He married Vanessa in a huge wedding that made all the society pages. Their baby boy was born, Nathaniel Jr. Constance threw massive parties. Diane posted everything online, flaunting their perfect life. They thought they'd won. They thought I was gone, destroyed, forgotten. They had no idea what was coming. I spent those 6 months building my case. Anonymous tips to the Securities and Exchange Commission. Leaked evidence to financial journalists who'd been watching Nathaniel for years but needed proof. Contacting witnesses, former employees ready to talk. Finding the city official Nathaniel bribed, now facing his own troubles and ready to flip for a deal. Gregory gave me internal emails, board meeting notes, financial records, everything. Then I made my move. Using a shell company, I bought 15% of Nathaniel's company's shares from a desperate investor selling cheap before the crash. It gave me the legal right to attend board meetings. Nathaniel never knew the shares were under a fake company name, hidden behind layers of protection. I called a special board meeting, citing shareholder concerns. It was my right. The day of the meeting I wore a sharp burgundy suit, my father's watch on my wrist. I left Hope with Ruth, the kind woman from the hospital who became my friend and babysitter. I looked in the mirror, and barely recognized the woman staring back. I looked powerful. I looked dangerous. I looked ready. The boardroom was on the 50th floor of Nathaniel's headquarters, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city he thought he owned. When I walked in, the room went dead silent. Nathaniel sat at the head of the table. Vanessa was there too, playing some executive role. Constance was present as a major shareholder. Diane stood in the corner with her phone, ready to film another victory. They all froze when they saw me. Nathaniel's face went white. "What are you doing here?" I smiled, actually smiled. "Hello, Nathaniel. Miss me?" I walked to the presentation screen and plugged in my laptop. "I'm here as a shareholder. I own 15% of this company, which means I have every right to be here. And I have some information I think the board needs to see." What happened next was beautiful. I showed them everything. The fraud, the tax evasion, the shell companies, the offshore accounts, the bribes, the stolen designs, every dirty secret my father uncovered, and more. Documents, emails, recorded calls, bank records, witness statements, evidence that would hold up in any court. The board members, wealthy investors who trusted Nathaniel with billions, watched their money disappear before their eyes. The financial exposure was massive. Criminal charges were coming. Constance stood up shaking. "This is slander. My son would never." "Your son absolutely would." I cut her off. "And he did. It's all here. The FBI received copies of everything an hour ago. I imagine they'll be here soon." As if on cue, federal agents walked into the boardroom. They'd been waiting in the lobby, working with me the whole time. Watching Nathaniel's face as he realized what was happening was worth every sleepless night. "Nathaniel Crawford, you're under arrest for fraud, tax evasion, money laundering, and conspiracy." They read him his rights while snapping handcuffs on his wrists. Vanessa screamed. Constance fainted, or pretended to. Diane tried to run. Security stopped her. Her phone was taken as evidence. She'd helped cover things up. But I wasn't finished. "There's more," I told the remaining board. "I filed a civil lawsuit. The prenup is void, signed under fraud. I'm entitled to 50% of everything. And there's the matter of my daughter, Hope. DNA proves Nathaniel is the father. I'm owed 3 years of child support, calculated at his real income. That's $340 million, plus damages for emotional distress, public humiliation, and abandonment while pregnant. I'm also asking for full custody, supervised visits only for a federal criminal." Nathaniel was being led away in handcuffs, but he heard every word. He turned, our eyes met. "Remember my father's grave?" I asked quietly. "When you had those divorce papers thrown at my feet, while I cried over the only person who ever loved me, you laughed. Your whole family laughed. You left me there, 7 months pregnant, and you laughed." I stepped closer so only he could hear. "You tried to bury me, Nathaniel. You didn't know I was a seed. And seeds grow in the dark." Then louder so everyone heard. "This isn't revenge. This is justice, for me, for my daughter, for every person you stepped on to build your empire of lies. Enjoy prison." The agents took him away. Vanessa was crying, mascara running. Constance looked 20 years older. Diane was arguing about her phone. I packed my laptop, nodded to the stunned board, and walked out. That was 2 years ago. Nathaniel is serving a 5-year federal prison sentence. He took a plea deal and ratted out other rich criminals to cut time. He lost everything: houses, cars, the company, all seized or sold to pay fines and restitution. Vanessa divorced him 3 months after the arrest. She took what little was left and vanished. She lost custody of their son after substance problems. Last I heard, she's working retail, her rich dreams gone. Constance lost her mansion and her lifestyle. She lives in a small apartment on Social Security. None of her old friends speak to her. The humiliation broke her. Diane is facing conspiracy charges. Her social media is gone. The girl who lived online has disappeared from the internet completely. As for me, I used the settlement money wisely. I started a foundation in my father's name that helps women escaping abuse and financial control. We give legal help, housing, job training, childcare. Ruth and Maria work with me now. We've helped over 500 women start new lives. Hope is 2 years old, happy, healthy. She has her grandfather's eyes and his kind heart. I tell her stories about him every night. She'll never meet him, but she'll know exactly what kind of man he was. I found love again. His name is Anthony. I met him volunteering at a community center. He's a teacher, kind, patient. He knew me when I had nothing. He didn't care about my past or my money. He loves me for me. We're taking it slow, but Hope adores him, and that's everything. Sometimes people ask if I feel guilty for destroying Nathaniel's life. The answer is no. I didn't destroy his life, he destroyed his own with his choices. I just made sure he faced the consequences. There's a difference between revenge and justice. Revenge is about hurting someone. Justice is about making things right. My father taught me the truth always comes out. He taught me to be strong. He taught me I was worth more than how anyone treated me. And in the end, he gave me the weapon to prove it. They tried to bury me at my father's grave that day. They laughed while I cried. They thought they'd won. But they didn't know I was my father's daughter. They didn't know his strength runs through my veins. They didn't know the quiet girl they threw away could bring down an empire. The greatest revenge isn't destroying someone. It's becoming so powerful that their betrayal becomes the best thing that ever happened to you. It's rising so high their laughter becomes a distant memory. I'm not the broken woman who knelt in the mud anymore. I'm the phoenix that rose from those ashes. I'm the warrior my father knew I could be. And every single day I wake up grateful that Nathaniel showed me exactly who he was. Because if he hadn't, I never would have discovered who I am. This is my story. This is my truth. And this is my justice. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button right now. Subscribe because I have more stories of survival and triumph that will blow your mind. Comment below, what would you have done in my position? Would you have taken the high road, or burned everything down? I want to know. My next video drops in 3 days, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. It's about a woman who discovered her best friend was sleeping with her husband for 10 years. What she did next is absolutely insane. Remember this. They can take everything from you, your money, your home, your dignity. But they can never take your power to rise again. Never let anyone make you feel small. You're stronger than you know. I'll see you in the next one.